So we're going to talk about difficult conversations
There
today.
you go.
So this is difficult conversations with employees, okay? And it is something that I guess new leaders really struggle with. So this is really designed for them, okay? And for you. You could obviously use this stuff, but it's really designed for people who step into leadership and really don't know how to deal with people and their bad attitudes or when they're showing up late. And the idea is it gives them framework to work from. Okay. And it's also, I would say, designed for non-assertives. So the hardest thing I would say for somebody stepping into leadership, if they're non-assertive, is these conversations. It doesn't get harder for people, when they have to discipline somebody. Okay. And so what I've done is I've recorded kind of the nuts and bolts of it so that you guys can get the recording after. We'll email you the actual nuts and bolts of what they should do. And then after, I'll answer questions. Okay, sound good?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So let me get it started. All right, so there's two approaches, okay? And you're going to use both. Both are relevant. The first approach is really for behavior and things that don't necessarily deserve write-ups. This employee's not headed out the door, let's put it that way. And I talk about that here. But then the second approach is how you do write-ups, okay? And believe it or not, this stuff works. Uh, Shockingly works. I had an office a couple weeks ago. They were complaining about a hygienist and just droning on and on about her bad attitude and it's never changed and she's been like this for years. And I first thing I asked them was like, "Well, have you talked to her about it?" And they're like, sheepishly, they were like, "No." I was like, "Well, let's start there." And you're going to hear that first approach here in a second. I said, "Let's start there. Let's talk to her about it, Let's open up the dialogue of exactly what you're seeing." And they were basically saying it won't change and it's probably going to make her angry and we'll have to fire her. That's what I was expecting. This happened about 4 weeks ago, actually. I was expecting that this conversation was going to go to the point where she'd get mad and feel offended and quit, right? Typical hygienist stuff, right? And so I said, well, we got to do it because she was at the point where she was driving other employees out, is what happens, right? So her attitude got so bad that it was causing problems with other employees. And I said, we got to do something. Either we're going to lose her or we're going to lose other people. So we got to do something. So I told them to do the first approach. Start there, right? And believe they were like shocked, dumbfounded, right? First week, she's like changed completely, you know? And you go, okay, people could change for a week or so. But it's been like a month now. And they're like, she's great, attitude's gone. So this stuff actually works, believe it or not. Okay. So I'm gonna hit play and you guys listen, and then I'll follow up with questions you guys have because there definitely will be questions. Some of the main questions will be pushback. Employees will push back on like uh, and give excuses, let's put it that way. So we'll talk through that here in a second, but let me hit play. So this is what you can use. I'm going to email you guys this so you guys can use for your leaders so that they've got a framework to work off of in holding people accountable and dealing with array of issues from bad attitude, showing up late, not getting the job done correctly, whatever the scenario is. Okay. All right, for difficult conversations, there are two approaches we're going to use. The first one is more casual and it is not used for official write-ups. So, that being said, this is going to be used for scenarios where people are drifting a little bit, but it doesn't deserve like a full write-up. Now that can be a bad attitude, can be, yeah, they're drifting and you're noticing the attitude has shifted, it's changed a little bit. and you need to get them back on track, or maybe you want them smiling more, that kind of thing. So it can be serious, but it's doesn't deserve a full write-up. Okay, we'll get into that here in a second. So what you're going to do is just pull this person aside at some point, and this technique is obviously to be used either by the doctor or leadership. So the whole point of me teaching you guys this is that you can go back and teach your leaders how to deal with people. And bad attitudes, this is a tough one. Okay, so this would be the approach I would use first. Okay, so first you take them aside and you say, "Hey, you got a minute? I'd just like to check in with you real quick." Okay, and they're gonna say, "Sure." I'm gonna say, "Okay, I want you to tell me what's going well for you here. What are you doing that's doing well and that's working for you?" And they're gonna list off things. Well, it's great. I get to work with two doctors, or doesn't matter. They're going to list. They're very easy in terms of listing off things that are going well for them. Okay. Then you're going to say where are you getting stuck, or what might not be going so well for you. Okay. And they're going to list off some things here. Now, they might not list off anything that you wanted to talk to them about, okay? Or they might. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's just to kind of get the conversation started. And this is really helpful for leaders who maybe are a little bit non-assertive. So you get the conversation going this way, okay? Then you're going to say, here's what I'm seeing. Okay, this is what I see is going really well, right? Room setups are great, working well with patients, all whatever you think they're doing and excelling at. Then you get into where you think you're that they're struggling. Now this could be the bad attitude. So this is where you bring up, here's what I'm seeing is that you used to come with a great attitude, smiling a lot, always in a good mood, and now it's drifted. Are you aware of that? Okay, and they're going to say yes or no. I haven't noticed that. Well, I've noticed that, and I was wondering what we could do. And so you always want to start with these conversations. The first time you have them is, how can we help? How can I help? You get back to the place where you had that kind of great attitude. Okay, so always start with not blaming the person, not prodding them, hey, you need to be this way. Start with, how can I help? Okay, so the first time you have this conversation, you say, how can I help? What can I do to get you back on track with that great attitude you used to have? Okay, and they might not say that you could do anything. They might just go into, well, I really need to work on it. I got some stuff going on at home. And so this gets the conversation going, and it gets it going naturally. Okay. And the important thing here is to establish another check in uh, going forward. So you might say, look, yeah, I'd like to check in with you like once a week and just talk about what I'm seeing. If it's something that's super bad that you need to check in more often, you would say, hey, I'd like to actually check in with you every day for a couple days, and just make sure that this does get changed. So you would say something like that. Or you might say that let's check in every other week, that kind of thing. But at the end, set up a sequence of check ins after. That's super important. So this is the first step, okay? This is way before we're going to write somebody up or where they're headed out the door being fired, okay? Is you're going to be doing these check-ins, and uh, and it's a natural way to get the conversation going in your direction to where you can talk about issues that you're seeing, and you can establish regular check-ins. And it really does work. That's the funny part. Believe it or not, this does work. So I've been surprised many times in people that I didn't think would make it or change that do, by using this technique. Okay. All right, so that's the simple check-in. This is not a major offense where we're writing somebody up. Maybe even they were late the one time and they're never late to work. This is, you would establish a check-in. Hey, I noticed you were late the other day, and so you start there. Okay. Then you get into more of official write-up, okay? And this is the system I'd like your leaders to use, okay? So first is to invite them to a meeting. Hey, you got a minute? I really would like to talk to you about something, okay? And they say, sure. And then you're going to say, here, this is what I've noticed. I've noticed you've been late a couple days. Or I noticed that the attitude hasn't really changed. Or I noticed fill in the blank. Okay. And they're going to say, yes, maybe, I've noticed or haven't noticed. Okay. Then you're going to identify and make sure that they understand the protocol, the system, uh, uh, the policy, if you will, of the practice. Do you realize that you're supposed to be here at 8, right? And everybody's supposed to be here at 8. And so you're going to identify the policy that they're breaking, okay? And make sure they understand the rule. Sometimes when we go into this, what we find is they don't actually know that there was a set rule. So you want to make sure that they understand the rule and don't assume that they actually know. Obviously, being late, they usually do know that one. But a lot of times when we go through this, they don't actually know the protocol or the actual rule that they're breaking. So you want to go there first, okay, and make sure that they understand that. Next is when they are doing something. At this point, you want to have them do what's called a 360 view. How does their behavior impact others? Okay. And it's important that they talk, not you. Okay. So, you being late, how do you think that impacts other employees? Potentially, right? They've got to pick up the slack. Maybe they've got to stock your rooms or whatever, right? So how does it impact other employees? How does it impact me, your leader? It makes it incredibly difficult for me to lead others and hold other people accountable when they can always just point to you and say, well, she comes in at 8:15 every day, so why do I have to? It makes my job extremely difficult, right? So go back to that, how it makes it life difficult for you as their leader. How's it potentially tough for the doctor? And how could it eventually impact the patients? So if everybody's upset, and the mood is down in the office because everybody's mad that you're the only one showing up at 8:15 and everybody else has to be here at 8. It can set the wrong tone in the practice, and obviously that impacts the patients. So a 360 view, how their behavior could potentially impact every aspect of people that are involved in the practice, from leadership to patients to the doctor. And you want to do that 360 view to make sure that they totally understand how their behavior impacts everybody in the practice. Okay. Then you're going to move to what can you commit to moving forward. So get a commitment out of them. What can you change and what can you commit to moving forward? Get them to say it. You don't say it. Get them to say it. Okay. It's important that as you go through this conversation, that you're not just talking at people, that it is a two-way conversation and you want to get this stuff out of them verbally, that they say most of this stuff. So when you ask them, what can you commit to moving forward? It's not you saying, here's what I need you to commit to. I need you to commit to being here at 8. You've got to get them to say it first. And they're going to say, well, I can commit to making sure that I'm here at 8. Okay. Then you're going to ask them, what would happen? What do you think would happen if you did not honor those commitments? Okay. They're going to say, well, I could be written up. I could be. And so they might not initially go to, I could get fired, but you've got to make sure that they get there. Okay, so what would happen after that if you continue doing it? Then eventually, I guess I'd get fired. Right. And you say, right, we don't want that to happen. We value you, but we got to get this changed. Okay, so get them to eventually get to the point where they understand that they could get fired over this if it keeps on happening. So what would happen if you did not honor those commitments? Okay,
And then what would you do? And then lastly, what would you do if you were me and these commitments were not honored? And get them to say roughly the same thing, right? Like, yeah, if I were you in your shoes, I wouldn't tolerate it. I'd let you go, you know. So you're gonna get them to go through these steps. Okay, so first is to invite them in, right? Here's what I've noticed. Okay, and then you're going to inform them on the procedure, the protocol, the rules of the practice. Do you realize the rules, right? Then you're going to do a 360 view of how this impacts everybody in the practice, including patients. Uh, then you're going to get into the three different things they're going to commit to. So, what are you going to commit to moving forward? What would happen if you didn't honor these commitments? And what would you do if you were me and these commitments weren't honored? Okay. So that is the system. And this is the first verbal warning. This kind of goes into their documentation as their first verbal warning. This can be straight to a written warning. So remember that you don't have to do the three strikes and you're out thing. You can go from, you can do that. And most of the time, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go verbal warning, written warning, and then you're out the door, right? But sometimes you can go straight to a written warning. This is the last time. If it happens again, you're out of here. And then, of course, you can just fire people on the spot. If it's that bad, you don't have to do any of this, and you just let them go. But typically, you're going to go through these steps. Okay, a verbal warning, written warning, and then you let them go. Sometimes we do a final written warning. So there's a second strike, if you will. So uh, there's a verbal, written, sometimes a final written, and then let go. So you can use that approach as well. It just depends on the situation and the severity of it. But remember, the point is to get the behavior corrected and to get it documented so that when you do let somebody go, that it's not a surprise, right? We shouldn't be letting people go where it's a big shock to them that they're being let go. If you use this system and use it correctly, that'll stop happening, and they'll realize way before they're let go uh, that they're on thin ice, and that is the point. So start using these two different approaches. So in areas where it's not justified for a write-up, do a check-in. I would like to check in with you for a minute. What's going well? Where are you getting stuck? Where do you think you could improve? Here's what I think you're doing well at. Here's what I think you can improve. Okay, start there with scenarios that don't require, or it's not heading in a write-up situation. And then you move to this situation where you're going to follow these steps, where you're going to do a write-up. Uh, and this would be a verbal write-up to start. And then it moves to an official write-up. So that's the system. Those are the things I'd like you guys to start using. And it actually works quite well, believe it or not. And it's quite shocking how often, when I hear leaders kind of complain about somebody, oh, she's doing this or doing this wrong. And they kind of complain to me over a couple of weeks. And I go, well, have you talked to her about this? And they go, no. I'm like, well, first step is to sit them down and talk to them. And they go, well, I don't know how to do that. And so we cover this approach with the check-in, right? So start with communicating exactly what your expectations are with this approach.
All right. So there you go. That's how it works. And it is a system. So follow it. Some pushbacks, some common pushbacks that we get would be when you go through a scenario where you're trying to correct behavior, they start pointing to other people's bad behavior. Okay. Super, super common is to deflect and say, well, Jenny's late all the time. You've got to make sure that they understand. So you got to steer it back. This conversation is about you. We'll deal with Jenny later. I'll deal with Jenny. This is about you. Okay. So that's number one. That's the number one pushback. Sometimes we get uh, different pushbacks, but a lot of them will center around this is another employee just is doing the same thing. Uh, but another thing that happens is where they want specific examples. And then they want to dissect each example and explain why, like if I've got a bad attitude, give me an example. Oh, that day on Tuesday, when I did that is because of this. We're not getting into specifics. Okay. So when they want specifics and the problem that you're having with them is overarching, like an attitude issue, you want to get away from specifics and just say, I just need it changed. I've noticed it. I'm done with it. I need it changed. Okay. If so, sometimes there are specific things. There's specific times when they didn't set the room up. The room was not set up correctly. You can go into those directly. Uh, but there are obviously the most difficult conversations are the ones where it's attitude based, it's nebulous, it's a feeling you're getting about this person, and you want to steer clear of real specific examples and just stick with I just need this change. I need the attitude changed. Okay. So that's the approach. So in most scenarios, start with a check-in. If it's not something you want to write people up, if you don't think this person's really headed out the door for this behavior, just start with a check-in. Just say, hey, what's going well for you? Where you think where you're struggling, where you getting stuck. Okay, here's what I think you're doing well at, but here's where I think you're getting stuck. Okay, and you go into it at that point and you say, how can I help? Is there anything I can do to help? Can we get you more training? Maybe more time with the doctor? Maybe and let's take it. The first approach is to take uh, responsibility, I guess is the word. How can I help you? Okay. That's how you start it. Then the next approach is we're gonna check in once a week. You set a series of check-ins, whether it's once a week, every other day, every day. You let them know I'm gonna check in with you once a week. Okay. And at that point, it gets a little less. We've aired our laundry. They know what this is about. You don't have to do, hey, what's going well, what's going. We don't have to kind of go that approach. You can kind of go straight into that the behavior issue at that point. Okay. And if it's getting better, if it's not, it's real important that if it's behavioral, that you establish these check-ins regularly, meaning like daily almost, so that they get that feedback loop. So when they have a good day, they get to hear, yeah, it was a good day, no problems. And if it's a bad day, it's not a week later when we're talking about it. Okay. So correcting behavior, that's how it works. Okay. Any questions? Anybody got any questions? Dr. Peterson, you got any questions?
Uh, no, I think you're right, Wes. The step a lot of people miss is actually having that conversation, but yet leading them to admitting their shortcomings and then committing to taking care of it or improving it. Kind of goes back to Cialdini. If you give your word, most people will follow through with it.
So when you get to the actual write-up scenario or the verbal warning, it's super important that you have them do the talking, like Dr. Peters is saying. You don't want to just talk at people. You will not get change if your leadership group is just talking at people. You've got to get them talking to you, and where they explain the behavior. They explain the impact of the behavior. Yeah, other employees, maybe they start resenting me. Could probably create bad attitudes amongst them just because they're upset that I'm getting away with this. Uh, and of course, the doctor can pick up on that people aren't happy here. And then, of course, that impacts the patients. They come in here and they can feel a somber atmosphere, right? So get them to say that. You have to lead it a little bit, of course, but you have to get them to say it. Then, like Dr. Peterson said, Cialdini, get them to verbalize their commitments, not you. What can you commit to in terms of changing? If you use these techniques, they work. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's the point.
One other comment, Wes, if I may. Uh, I have clients sometimes that don't want to confront the actual person who is causing the problem. So they'll have a whole office meeting
Mm.
and then say, well, we've got a problem with how the rooms are being set up. And they talk like it's everybody, but it doesn't have an effect that way.
Zero effect.
Yeah.
Absolute zero.
So
People that
go right
are
to the person.
right. People that people are really bad at self-evaluation. They think they're doing great and everybody else is the problem. So you have to go straight to the person. And using this check-in approach, it's a nice casual way, like I was trying to say, it's a nice way to casually bring it up where it's not offensive and you slowly start the conversation that you get change. I mean, that's the whole point. Uh, and if they don't change, you have to make a change in the end, you know. Eventually that leads to them out the door. And the whole point of this is you follow this sequence, they're not going to be shocked that they're let go. And if they really value the job and care, they will make the change. If they don't care, you should let them go you should let people like that go. Okay? So, all right. Any other questions? Any other comments or questions?
I have never been very good at running my practice. It usually would run me because I'd be so busy running around seeing patients I didn't know what everybody else was doing.
Yeah, that's pretty common. So as
And
soon
then
as
I hired a office manager, but she was so busy also doing the front desk things
uh-huh.
that she didn't do any of the things I wanted her to do, including I gave her like a $200 a month uh, fund to give to our staff when she caught them doing something right. It
Okay.
would force more right behavior,
Right.
and she never spent any of that.
So you would do this same technique with her. Do a check-in. What's going well? Where you getting stuck? Here's what I think you're doing well. You're running an amazing front desk, but here's an area I think you're getting stuck with. I've asked you to implement this and it's not working. You're not, it's not, you're not doing it. So and they go, yeah, I guess I'm not, so how can I,
that that
then you'll go, how can I help you? Right? So being like a non-serve doctor, so how can I help you get that started? Right? And she might say, no, I can handle it. Or uh, she might have something that she could use help on. And you start there with her. Okay. Then after that, you go into this more serious stuff where you say, hey, you got a minute. Are you aware that we talked about you implementing this bonus for the team? She's going to say yes. And you're aware that I wanted this. And so you go into the rule or the protocol. You're aware we checked in on this and we established that we'd get this done by such and such date. And she's going to say yes. Okay, then you go into a kind of a 360 view of how that impacts the team, meaning we're trying to motivate the team to reinforce behavior. So we're not getting that. Uh, and so that obviously impacts patients. And then, of course, it upsets me that I have a leader that I've told her to do something and it's not getting done, And so, what can you commit to? And you kind of go through these steps and just follow it yourself.
yeah, that makes sense. I don't have a manager
And
now.
if
She
she doesn't
retired and moved to
doc, yeah, if she doesn't
LA.
do it, eventually you got to let her go. But doing it this way, she'll see the writing on the wall. She'll either do it and make the changes, or she'll start looking for another job before you even get to the point where you let her go.
Yeah, she's helping her her daughter right now with her family in 300 miles away.
Yikes. Yeah, well, that's not helpful.
Yeah. And
Can I make a
she was
comment?
engaged with
Yeah.
someone that is very friendly and very punctual, but she's like not quite all there.
Well, so watch this video. As I said, I made this video so you can watch the nuts and bolts of it and use this on her, you know? And so what people will do is they'll pre-write it up so that they have it written in front of them. Here's the 360 view. Here's the, what they want out of the conversation. So the conversation doesn't drift. Dr. Peterson, go ahead.
Well, sometimes I see in single doctor offices that the office manager is also kind of the front desk leader.
Mhm.
And there's a point where you can't really do both of those things. So
I
office,
found that out.
yeah, office manager really is someone who isn't just sitting at the front desk answering phone, doing insurance and so forth, but someone that can manage the entire office, is moving around, is listening outside of treatment rooms to the hygienist, to everybody, and understands the functions of the office, how they all fit together, how the numbers work. It really becomes a full-time job. But there's a certain point in the office where
You have to make that
having
jump.
an extra person and an extra salary is tough. So
Right.
you have to
Yeah,
really
that's
watch.
always where we've been,
Right.
Yeah,
not busy enough to have
So
an
with this,
extra person.
with this approach, and you say, "How can I help?" She might lay it out like, "I'd love to do this for you, doctor, but I'm running that I'm so
yes,
swamped." And so it starts the conversation. So you're not pointing fingers at her. You're saying, "How can I help?" And she can download to you of why this is an impossible task.
yeah.
And then you
It's,
guys talk about how a workaround. Sometimes you can go, well, maybe I can do part of it as the doctor. Maybe I can sit in
Our
a
assistants think we need another assistant.
right. She might
Our
say,
front
yeah,
desk thinks we
there you
need
go.
more help in the front.
Right.
And
So it opens the dialogue is the point.
yeah, and it may really be that you just need an effective manager to make sure all those departments work correctly.
yeah,
It's
I think we need effective employees doing their job first,
well,
but
and that's
Well,
what
then
managers.
it opens this whole conversation. So
yeah,
then you go, okay, how can I help? And she says, well, I'm doing two people's jobs because Susie is not doing her job. And go, okay,
yeah, I've
let's
heard
deal,
that.
let's deal with Susie. Let's talk about how we can deal with Susie, get her on the right track. And if not, let's let her go and get somebody in here that can really do the job. So you got to work through it with her. You got to help her. And the
Mhm.
first approach, the check-in approach, is where you start and you open the dialogue of how can I help? She downloads that I'm doing somebody else's job because they're inefficient, and you start working through it with her.
An interesting thing I did, or I used to do a review yearly,
Hmm.
so they can talk about how things are going to in their eyes, and 100% everybody was doing what they should be doing, but nobody else was.
Remember I said
I
earlier,
heard you say
are
that.
terrible at self-evaluation, terrible at it. That's why, like Dr. Peterson said, you can't just address the team when you're seeing a single behavior.
I did that individually with
Yeah,
nobody there, just them.
yeah, that's pretty common. It's pretty common. So, all right. Any other questions? So good. Take it and use it,
This
Doctor.
is Liz Erickson. Sorry, I don't have my video on.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing, just talking about all this discipline stuff, one thing that we kind of found was super helpful was to create like 4 or 5 values of our office. Because when these things are like, you're like, they have a bad attitude or these things that aren't really like tangible, you can
Right.
kind of incorporate it. So the one that respect. So when you say it's one of our why you're getting written up, because it just kind of encapsulates, you can always go back to the values instead of just like be nice, you're rolling your eyes, you should be professional, right? Like if you have like one of ours is like 5-star customer experience, you know, like, hey, if you're making that patient wait, that's not 5 customer experience. So like you can kind of group any activity
That's a very,
behavior,
yeah, the approach is to set a list
and then it
of
makes corrective
go ahead.
coaching easier.
Yeah, right. If you set a list of core values of the practice, what makes you tick and what kind of the expectations are of the employees and what they should embody, you can always tailor these conversations around those core values, which is very helpful. The thing that you got to make sure is that you're talking about the core values all the time, though.
Yeah.
So you can't have some buried document of core values and only pull it out when you're kind of reprimanding somebody. You got to talk about the core values a lot so that it's in front of their mind, the core values they should embody, and so that when you bring this up, you could say, look, we're 5-star service. It's one of our core values, and what you're doing, it definitely can impact our ability to give 5-star service. You know, so you can always tie it into core values, which is great.
I
So
agree with Liz. I think every office should have core values and they need to be lived by.
yeah,
As
they
you
need to
said,
be talked about. They can't just be filed away, and nobody ever talks about it.
yeah. If one of your core values is your of service to your community, that means you do other things than just provide dental treatment. You get involved with the community, you belong to service groups, you participate in other activities. Core values are, I think, a very important part of any office's basic structure, just as performance expectations are also, I think, a part of onboarding any new employee is giving them a copy of your office manuals, discussing your core values, what you believe in, what you do, and then the performance expectations of their job. Those things really set the stage for any type of corrective procedures in the future.
Yeah,
And as Wes said, you have to live them. It doesn't mean you pull them out of the file when you want to reprimand somebody, because that just gets you in more trouble.
right, right. That's a good point. Okay, any other questions or comments? Great. So this system works, believe it or not, and it'll either change people or it will change people, meaning you let them go and you get somebody else. But you should always be doing that, you know. You should not let behavior just linger on and on. You should deal with it head on and take them through this approach that I'm talking about. And if they don't change, it means they don't value the job. And you don't want that person there anyways. And so there has to be a little bit of sand sifting with employees, you know, over time. You hire, you let some go, you hire some more, let some more, and pretty soon you got a great team. It takes time, but you've got to go through this approach. If you're not talking to your people and holding them accountable in terms of expectations, core value expectations, you will not create a great team. You just won't. So, okay. All right. Thanks for joining me on Saturday. Okay. Have a
Thanks,
good day.
Wes and Ron.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Okay.